my channel, Kazzie here. In this video I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, and I don't know if anybody's ever done this before, but I'm going to be doing it today. And that is, I'm going to be revisiting my first ever book haul that I did, which was around this time actually last year. I'm going to revisit it and see if I've read those books. I know I've done quite a few book hauls on this channel, and I think one more is still to come because I haven't done it yet, and that is my random book haul. That will be coming soon. That's because all of the books in that haul are kind of like in awkward places because I've put them away. I know like some people don't put their books away, but because my books are double-faced or up quite high, I just haven't had a chance to wrangle them all together yet. So we're going to revisit my first ever book haul that I did this time last year, because this time last year I was actually bitten by the booktube bug and the reading bug, because I found booktube, which is an absolute black hole. Not that I'm complaining, because I love it. It is my happy place. My bank account doesn't love it, but I do. So I actually went back to my first ever book haul and got all of the books that I had featured in that one, and we're going to go through them in the order that I hauled them and whether or not I've read them or not. So if this is something that you want to see, then just stay tuned. Okay, the first book that I featured in that haul and have subsequently featured in a couple of hauls since, because I've got a couple of editions of it now, it was the whole gateway drug to this whole thing, and that was Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. If you don't know, I found this in the airport in Belfast when I was going to Portugal. I had one of the other books in this haul with me at the time, and I was going to finish it, and so I knew I needed another book, and I found this one because just look at it. It's blue and gold. It's like literally my favorite colours in the world, and it's just this gorgeous one. This isn't the edition that I bought at the time. The other edition that I have is up on the shelves behind some other books, but this is the one that I got at the same time, about literally a week later. This is the Waterstones edition with the blue edges. I have read this book. I love this book. It is one of my favourite books of all time. I couldn't believe that a book like this existed. That's the thing about booktube. It opened me up to this world where I could know that these books existed. The bookstore that we had in this town closed down a few years ago, and I am furious that it did. I was like bereft when it left. Poetry. Once it left, we didn't have anywhere to buy books except for the supermarket, and even then it's all like thrillers and adult books and or children's books. So I wasn't interested in any of those, and I'd heard about Helium Bookland getting the ARC for this with the US cover, which I don't like, by the way. I love this cover oh so much. She hadn't read it at that point. I think she had tried to read it a couple of times but wasn't completely sold on it. I picked it up, looked at the back of it, was absolutely enthralled by it, then started reading it. Absolutely loved it, and as I said, I didn't know worlds like this could exist, and so that made me want to get into reading so much more, because if worlds like this could exist, then I want to read about them. And so now I have 3 editions of this book. Regret nothing. After I featured Strange Dream, I also had Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, which included Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. Nope. There we go. And the Sea of Monsters, the Titan's Curse, the Battle of the Labyrinth, and the Last Olympian. I read all of these. I read them back to back. I actually read The Lightning Thief when I went to Portugal, so I read this before I read Strange the Dreamer that month. Loved it. And then once I finished Strange the Dreamer, I think then I went straight on to The Sea of Monsters, etc. Absolutely loved this series. I watched the movies first because I didn't know they were book series at the time. Actually, I watched The Sea of Monsters first and then The Lightning Thief. Because that's what I do. I fell in love with them. I fell in love with the character, especially Annabeth. I adored her. I think at the time I actually preferred Percy to Harry Potter, because I was reading Harry Potter at the time as well. I got to about the Order of the Phoenix just before I discovered booktube, and then I took a break from it, and then I started on Percy, and then that was like the whole then gateway drug, as I say. I completed this entire series. It was in the same month that I hauled it, so that was good going. I also hauled the entire series of the Heroes of Olympus. I'm not lifting them all down because they're up on a high shelf. They're all kind of like wedged in with other books, and so I just lifted the first one down. So we have the Lost Hero, the Son of Neptune, the Mark of Athena, the House of Hades, and the Blood of Olympus. There we go. That's all of them. And I have read all of them. I didn't read them all in the month that I hold them. I pretty much did like one book a month. Loved them all, especially because these ones here focused on merging Greek mythology and Roman mythology, which are closely intertwined, but they're vastly different at the same time. And I loved the way that the characters tried to merge them and to educate you a bit more on them. The heroes in these actually go to places that I have been, which I loved. I loved the fact that they had gone to Malta, to Split in Croatia, into Mykonos, and I think they had like gone to near Santorini or something like that, and I've been to all of these places, and of course Athens I've been to as well. I loved that so much because it just grounded it for me all the more, and I just love Rick Riordan's writing so much. I didn't mention that Rick Riordan wrote the previous ones, obviously. I know a lot of people probably are confused by the way I say Riordan. That's the way we pronounce it here in Ireland. Rick Riordan. It's an Irish surname. Riordan. I know people say Riordan or Riordan. It's Riordan. I don't know what way he personally pronounces it, but that's just the way that I pronounce it. So yes, so I've read all of these. After that I hauled Everything Everything by Nicola Yoon, and I have read it. I did read it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting. The ending was a bit of a cop-out. I thought it was very rushed, and I thought it was very much like a, seriously? I called it literally about maybe less than a quarter of the way through. It was enjoyable, and I eventually got rid of it, I think in November, December. I was just getting rid of a lot of books, and it made the cut. Read it. In that haul also featured Caravelle by Stephanie Garber. This is one of 3 editions that I now own of this book. I have it in Spanish, and I have it in the paperback edition with the red edges. This edition of it has the clock on the front, which is gorgeous, and I have pre-ordered the sequel Legendary, which is also going to be a signed edition. I've read it. I loved it. I think I actually read it the same month that I hauled it, so bonus points. 10 points to Ravenclaw. If you don't know, I'm a Ravenclaw. I loved it. I loved the whole twists and turns of it. I know a lot of people weren't particularly enthralled by it, but I was. That's my personal opinion of it, and I thought it was a very good book, and I cannot wait for the sequel because this one follows Scarlet's perspective. Legendary is from Donatella's perspective, the younger sister, and so I love that. I cannot wait for that. So yes, I read it. I also featured Heartless in that haul. This is the UK paperback edition. I don't like this design at all. As I said in that one, I prefer the US one, and in my book depository haul that was from a couple of weeks ago, I eventually bought the US hardback edition. I don't know why I'm speaking like this. And I did read it. I think I read it in June or July, and I think this book was actually the gateway for me to understanding the joy of reading and the escapism of reading. Like, for years everybody was like going, oh, I read for escapism, and I was like, okay, whatever. I like to read too, but it's not for escapism. I was such a dumbass for saying that, because now I understand it. I get it, because I was having a really shitty time at work, and I was just saying to myself, I cannot wait to just go home and go to Wonderland, and this was the book that I was reading at the time. I really enjoyed the aspect of it for being a origin story for the Queen of Hearts from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I don't think I was particularly enthralled by it. I did enjoy it, but I wasn't like blown away by it, if that makes any sense. I'm literally losing my accent, because whenever my voice gets tired or I get tired, I just like lighten it even more, so it sounds less Northern Irish than ever. What I loved about this book is that it had the details from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, because I read this and then read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, so then I actually understood where the connections were. I was like, oh yeah, that's mentioned in Heartless. Oh yeah, that's mentioned in Heartless. And that was a very good book, and it was actually one that I think could use a companion novel to, or a sequel to. I don't think there's actually going to be one. It was enjoyable, so I read it. As I said, BookTube was a black hole, and Helium Bookland's hauls are also the biggest black hole ever to exist. And this book is no different, because it has been on Helium Bookland's channel for ages, and this is Snow Like Ashes by Sarah Roche. I absolutely love this book. When I read it, it is so good. It's about warring factions of this country that are all divided up into the seasons. There's spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Winter was conquered by, I think, spring. They're like battling to get back their land and what is rightfully theirs. I absolutely loved it. I loved the design of this book. It was always just like screaming at me, especially just the spine when it was just on my bookshelves. It was like screaming at me, read me. Okay, stop yelling at me, I'll read you. Loved it. And I actually have the sequel to it, which I've not read yet. This is actually a part of a trilogy, and I think that there is a novella attached to it as well. I'm not 100% certain, but I will eventually finish this because I need to know what happens next, but I just keep getting more and more books that kind of take my fancy a bit more. Yep, there's been a lot of hauls lately. I can't help it. Well, I can help it, but I don't wanna. There were 2 more books featured in that haul. My dogs are barking. These 2 books ruin the streak of this video because I haven't read them yet. The first one being The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak. This is the book that Healing Bookland talks about the most as literally her favorite book of all time. I haven't read it. I know I should read it. I know when Zoe, Read by Zoe, read it, she was in tears because she did it as part of a 24-hour readathon and she was in tears reading it. I'm hoping that I don't cry in it. I have never cried at a book, so I'm hoping that I will keep up that record of not crying in a book. I've always wanted to get to it every single month. I say, right, I'm going to get to The Book Thief, I'm going to get to The Book Thief, but then something else just says, no, read me. And then I keep forgetting that this is told from the perspective of death, and I'm just like, why didn't nobody tell me that? That's what I said when I actually hauled this. Why didn't anybody tell me that? I had to read it on the back. This is one that I have not read yet. Damn. I went into this idea thinking that I had read all of them and I was just gonna be like, ew. Nope. And the last book that was featured in that haul from a year ago was Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor, and I have not read this. Oh my god, why have I not read this yet? I have the whole trilogy and I have not read a single one of them. There are times when I said, right, I'm going to read Daughter of Smoke and Bone after the book that I'm currently reading, and I have not done that. Why? I don't know. Probably because something else takes my fancy at the time. But I really want to get to this because I adored Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor so much that I thought that once I finished one of the books that month that I would just dive instantly into this. No. It's been a year and I haven't. And I am so mad at myself that I haven't. I will be getting to this soon because, as I said, I love Laini Taylor. I don't know why I've waited so long to read something else by Laini Taylor. If you watched my recent Waterstones / Manchester haul, you will know that I got a collection of short stories by her, and I think they're going to be fun, so I think I will just have to tell myself, no, this is going to be a Laini Taylor month, where you're going to read Daughter of Smoke and Bone, read the short stories, reread Strange the Dreamer, because, you know, you have to before the next book comes out. Duh. Not that I have to, I just want to. So there you have it, guys. Those are all of the books that I featured in my first ever big massive book haul here on this channel. There were 17 books in it. I think I showed you about 14 because I was not about to reach down the whole series of the Heroes of Olympus because, as I said, they're kind of squished in there and I didn't want to reach up that high. So I think I did pretty damn well for all of the books that I bought a year ago, and I've read pretty much like 90% of them. I thought that was very, very good. There's only 2 books out of them that I didn't read. Out of 17 books, I read 15. That is amazing. And I know 17 of those books were 2 copies of Strange the Dreamer, so I actually read 14. There we go. Math! I can do math! So let me know down in the comments down below if you like this type of video. Should I revisit hauls that I've done previously? Do you like this new kind of filming setup where I'm just in front of this wall, or should I just like go back to in front of the bookcases? Let me know. Have you read any of these books? Have you read any of the books that you bought a year ago? Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye! That was a lot of videos. And now my room's a mess. Balls. I've got books, I've got Harry Potter stuff, I've got cushions and jewellery and just... Is that still filming?